If despite studying consistently for months, your mock scores are not increasing and you're not seeing any improvement, and even your teachers, mentors, and particularly you fail to understand why and to address this problem, then maybe your methods of studying is based on common sense and not on cognitive principles of learning. Toppers don't do different things, they do it differently. You might have heard this saying gazillion times in your life, but only today this will actually make a difference. Stay in this video till the end and maybe I can help you figure that out. Let's start the video. Hi everyone, this is Vivek and welcome back to Legalite's official channel where we make content that adds value to your CLAT prep. In this video, we are going to look at 5 key approaches on learning based on cognitive science that are easy to miss but are extremely important if you desire to become the next CLAT topper. So without wasting any further time, let's start with the first idea. The first question to answer is when you should study. The obvious answer to this question is that you will do better the more you study. So if you spend 100 hours preparing, you will do a lot better than if you spend only 10. This is pretty clear. What is less clear is exactly how you should allocate your limited studying time. This brings us to our first cognitive science principle, spacing effect. The robust research on the spacing effect clearly shows that studying time is more efficient if it is spread out over multiple sessions than if it is compressed in one session. More exposures to information separated in time will result in better retention than if you cram them together in one burst. Therefore, your studying schedule should take whatever time you have available and try to be as evenly spread as possible throughout your schedule. So for example, if you decide to study for 6 hours, then it is better to study in 6 1-hour each spaced out sessions with breaks rather than sitting for one session of 6 hours. The next question is how much to study each piece of information. We recommend that you aim for covering each piece of information via concepts, questions or problems at least 5 times, evenly spaced from the time you first encounter them until your eventual test date, which is going to be 11th of December or 18th of December this year. This retrieval of information should be evenly spaced. Given we have around 50 days left for the exam, therefore every 8th day you should study the same information. While studying any new GK topic or any new critical reasoning concept or a legal concept, set retrieval reminders in your smartphone after every 8th day so that you get the reminder to review or practice it and you don't miss this routine. This approach is near optimal for retaining information with the least amount of effort. Now let's move on to the next approach. The next approach is based on how you should study. Now, once you have figured out your schedule, it's now time to look at what you are actually doing when you study. Now, this is that one aspect where there is a vast difference between what most students think is effective and what actually works best. Consider one experiment by psychologists Jeffrey Karpik and Janelle Blunt. In this, they had students in 4 groups reviewing information. The first group did single review. That means reviewing the information once. The second group repeatedly reviewing the information. That means reviewing the same information many times. The third group did free recall of the information, which means trying to remember as much as you can without looking at the source. The fourth group created concept maps for reviewing the information, which is also called mind maps. Which group do you think did the best? But before I answer that, let me tell you what the subjects themselves thought. Those who did a concept mapping and repeated review thought they would do best with those doing free recall expecting the worst. And what actually happened? The exact opposite. Free recall did much better than other groups, even though these students themselves expected to score the lowest grades. This brings us to our second cognitive science-based principle, the testing effect. This effect says that testing oneself, which means retrieving the important information from memory, works better than rereading notes or creating diagrams while referencing your textbook. After your first time studying the material, the majority of the subsequent studying should be in the form of retrieval practice, which means trying to reproduce the information or trying to solve a problem or to explain an idea without looking at the source. Now let's move on to the next approach. The third approach is based on what kinds of practice we should do. Now there is a strict hierarchy of what kinds of study materials will be most useful to you in preparing for your eventual exam. The most valuable of all are mock tests and exams, which are intended to be identical in style and form to the test you are actually going to take. Next in line are practice problems given in homework assignments, workbook questions, or quizzes that are given for your class specifically. Finally, self-generated questions based on the material that you are reading and the question that you yourself make. The reason for this hierarchy of practice brings us to our third approach based on cognitive science known as transfer appropriate processing. Now, this basically means that the more your practice resembles the exam, the more your practice efforts will transfer into actual results. So always prioritize higher quality problem sets. Mock exams are the best, followed by in-class problems and then self-generated questions from big ideas or concepts. Now let's move on to the fourth approach based on cognitive science. Most of what is required in your CLAT exam is conceptual in nature. This means that your passing or failing in the CLAT exam inevitably rests on your understanding of some key ideas. For example, finding the author's main idea, finding the author's opinion, or knowing how the argument works. Memorization matters, but more often it is used as a means to understanding rather than an end in itself. This means that deeply understanding the core concepts behind any subject you study for should be a top priority. Practice problems already help with this, since to solve a problem you usually need to understand it first. However, most students mistake shallow understanding for a deeper one, and this brings us to our fourth cognitive science-based approach, which is popularly known by psychologists as the illusion of explanatory depth. The reason is that while it is easy to self-check factual knowledge, you either know it or you don't, understanding proceeds in degrees. So it is easy to convince yourself that you know something deeply while you don't. As a result, I recommend the Feynman technique as a tool for deepening your understanding of core concepts covered in the class. You will know something best when you can teach it. Ask any legal aid students, we strive to develop this capability to teach yourself in each of our students through our pedagogical systems. So identify the core concepts and make sure that you can explain them without looking at the source. And if you really don't get something, then go back and forth between the explanation in your textbook and your own understanding until you figure that out. Now let's move on to our final approach based on cognitive science. Big exams come with big anxiety. Anxiety is a too full-blown punch for your studying abilities. It's both harder to concentrate and the stress makes it harder to remember things even if you could. This brings us to the fifth cognitive science-based principle, which is exposure reduces anxiety. The solution is to make at least some of your self-studying sessions a full-blown simulation of the exam. If you have a few mock exams, I would save these for doing a full simulation of the test. Same sitting posture, materials, and most importantly, the same strict time constraints. And there are three benefits of doing full simulation based practice sessions. The first, you increase your temporary anxiety while studying. It sounds like a bad thing, but what it really does is that it makes it easier to recall the information during the test due to state-dependent memory effects. Second, by exposing yourself to the exam situation, you will be less anxious when the actual test comes. And finally, you will actually know what your performance is likely to be on the test. This brings us to the end of this video. Apply these 5 techniques on your studies and let us know how it improved your score and your confidence in your preparation. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. We are really grateful to all of you. If our videos add value to your CLAT prep, then please give it a thumbs up, subscribe our channel and share it among your friends. Until next video, thank you everyone. Thank you very much.